Huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Ruben Olson.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Clues, Campfire Clues. Got an interesting topic today, one that's a little bit more just nostalgic, kind of going into the dinosaur area. And I know me and Ruben talked about the MacLeod Bombay before on a main episode, but I'm going to be diving a little bit more into it this time around. Not specifically the MacLeod Bombay, but other dinosaur cryptids that have been seen in the present day time. Before we get into that, however, a couple of plugs. CryptidClues.ca. You can find our blogs there. It's our main website. You can send us an email, cryptidclues@gmail.com, if you want to say hi, if anything you want to share, or just check in. And you can also find us on social media channels as well. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all over the place. And then you can get us on Patreon. Ad-free early episodes there. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Do dinosaurs still exist? The ultimate question. Particularly, we're going to take a look here at Africa. A rich fossil record, but, it's not very complete. It's a little patchy. It has, however, a rich Triassic and early Jurassic dinosaur kind of quantity in terms of everything that's been discovered. African dinosaurs from these time periods include, and this is where I can say some dinosaur names correctly, but these names are a little bit trickier. Coelophysis, Dracovenator, Melanorosaurus, Masospondylus, Escalosaurus, Heterodontosaurus, Abrictosaurus, and Lesophosaurus. I'm actually quite proud of myself for that. Scientists had recently discovered a hip bone belonging to an ancestor of the Tyrannosaurus rex in Africa. Such a discovery actually leads scientists to believe that Tyrannosaurus may have lived all over the world, and that more Tyrannosaurus remains or skeletons may be discovered in places like Africa, South America, and India, which is quite fascinating, actually. Now, like I mentioned before, we got the MacLeod Bombay, and I'm going to kind of just touch upon this one again. It seems to be the most prominent dinosaur classification that particularly cryptozoologists spend time on is the sauropod. So sauropod dinosaurs, like the MacLeod Bombay, are long-necked big dinos. If you've seen, obviously, we've all seen Jurassic Park, but the first dinosaur that they kind of showcase in all its glory, the Brachiosaurus, and then we get to see Land Before Time, Littlefoot. So that's basically the kind of image you can put to your mind when thinking of a sauropod. So this goes hand in hand, similarly related with a sauropod. I don't know if a plesiosaur is technically a part of that same lineage. Maybe in some form it's connected. But plesiosaurs, again, prominently appear in certain locations throughout the world. That's something, again, that's very similar to a sauropod, like the MacLeod Bombay, associated with water, long necks, always just kind of popping out. Moving on from that, there's the Africa monster. I couldn't find an actually designated name aside from the term Africa monster, but this is a cryptid said to reside in Arica, Chile. It's believed this cryptid is a type of dromosaurid, which, if you could picture this in your mind, it would look kind of like a velociraptor, but coming in almost like 9 feet tall, about 26 and a half feet long, killing claw on its second toe of each foot, and basically covered in feathers and such. Now moving on from that, there's this. This is a tricky one. The Bielu. That's 3 times. I wasn't mispronouncing it. That is actually at 3 times is the name. It's another dinosaur cryptid that's basically associated as being a Kentrosaurus. So, to paint the picture now, 4-legged dinosaur, plates going along from its neck down its back to the tail. Not necessarily like a Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus has more of the plates, but this is more plate spike. Stegosaurus has very prominent spikes on its tail. These ones are much more, you can see them kind of like coming from the back, going into much long spikes coming and protruding out of the tail. But it's similar. It's very similar as a Stegosaurus, if you want to kind of picture that. It's said to, however, be living in the Republic of the Congo and is also aquatic. So, moving on from there, we have another one, another dinosaur cryptid. And I found a whole list of dinosaur ones that are non-winged. Like, these are all more like terrestrial terrain ones. So, Nguma Manene, according to African village folklore, is a large lizard-like cryptid with a serrated ridge that runs down its back. Some cryptozoologists have actually posed the idea this creature may be a Suchomimus or a Spinosaurus, or quite possibly even a Dimetrodon. And we all know the Spinosaurus, Jurassic Park 3, Suchomimus that has had reference, and then the Dimetrodon is like a much more close to the ground, all on all fours, like long tail, typical lizard-looking head, and just a very much like a Spinosaurus spine on the back, you could say, but not necessarily bipedal like you see the Spinosaurus represented in Jurassic Park 3. There are 3 catalog sightings, actually, of this cryptid in the Republic of the Congo. The first one was in 1961. The second happened 10 years later in 1971 by a man named Joseph Ellis, and he was actually a pastor as well. He stated the length of this creature was 32 feet long and had a grayish-brown color to it. So, it kind of paints a little bit of the attributes to it a little bit. This sighting and many more were gathered by a biologist named Roy McCall. He was actually from the University of Chicago, and he led 2 expeditions into the Congo while he was searching for the Magellan Bomb Bay. It's worth noting many people claim that in terms of the Nguma Manene, it's just a simple misidentification of modern-day crocodiles or monitor lizards. Now, moving on, and I didn't want to get into too many because there's so many plesiosaur-like dinos that are spotted all throughout North America, throughout the world, basically. And I thought, okay, I'll name one off just to kind of keep the trend going. Champ. This is a name given to the lake monster in Lake Champlain. It's worth noting that this is actually a freshwater lake in North America and is situated across the US-Canada border. Now, there's no evidence to support this cryptid. However, this is kind of like incredible. It's over 300 sightings have been documented. The lake itself stems over a 125-mile long body. And with a first sighting actually having taken place in 1609, that is incredible, the fact that we still have that documentation dating back 400 years. Its last sighting was 2018. And again, this cryptid is more along the lines of a plesiosaur type, not necessarily the standard sauropod that we've seen like with the Magellan Bomb Bay. So, looking at this whole collection of dinosaurs, these are all things that people are still seeing today. So what are they really seeing? When you look at something like Champ or Nessie or something along those lines, even the Ogopogo, this is the first documented sighting of Champ, for example, was 1609. You know, Nessie, Ogopogo, like I can't recall if it goes that far back. I think within the last century at least, but they're very, very old reports. Particularly with Champ, that I wanted to highlight here, is living in an ecosystem that is, 125 miles long, probably not insanely deep, but I'm very much prone to the idea that there are underground caves, networks, tunnels, highways that I've mentioned before. I think the same thing goes for the ocean and lakes and everything. Again, I'm not saying this connects to the ocean because it's freshwater, so it's going to be bottlenecked somewhere, and it's not going to be going all the way to the ocean, which would be quite a trek from, given its actual location between Canada and the United States. So, that being said, I don't dismiss the fact that there could be other underground bodies of water that this could be connected to, but how many would you need in there? The lifespan of something like this would probably be, unprecedented and unexpected, because it's such a foreign creature that's living amongst us today that who knows how long it could really survive in a habitat and ecosystem that it's evolved to adapt to. I mean, is this the same one that people are seeing from the 1600s to 2018? I'm not necessarily inclined to say it is. That being said, we've seen some sharks that are so bloody old, it's just flabbergasting. And I think that's a good kind of representation for this, where and I know me and Ruben have actually talked to this too. Some of these we suspect could have been alive at one point, but have died out and are no longer with us. And if you have this lake, like I was mentioning earlier, you would need at least two of them, a male and a female, in this area. And maybe back in the 1600s, there were a few more, and there would be enough. Okay, if it's enough of a little bit of a community that they could spur a couple of them, like, it would be a dying out group. And who knows if there's human intervention that's come in and kind of played God a little bit and kind of messed things around a little bit with the ecosystem. I mean, or expedited their extinction. It's very plausible as well. So we don't know for sure. We don't have all those facts, but I'm definitely bloody well curious about it. So moving forward from that, before we get into a little bit more of the dinosaur stuff, I'm just going to jump to a quick ad break because we know you love them, but it helps support the show and helps support the cast, so appreciate it, but we'll be right back. And we're back. So, dinosaurs. They died out roughly 65 million years ago. We've all heard that famous line from Jurassic Park. However, they reigned the Earth for about 165 million years. That is incredible. 165 million year reign. You can just imagine how long and diverse such a variety of species would have, just the incredible opportunity to evolve and become the absolute peak of what their species could be without having anything really interrupting them except natural disaster, natural predators, just being able to adapt to those sorts of unexpected things. There's a whole list of different things, as suspicions as to why the dinosaurs died out, from natural disaster, from volcanic activities, oceans overturning, and then asteroids coming down from the skies and smashing into the earth, and just the natural ecosystem just really kind of collapsing and changing. I didn't dive into a lot of that for this episode, but what I am going to speak to is the survivors of this. Survivors that evolved into birds. It's worth noting that this doesn't dismiss the fact as well that some of these survivors could have been deep sea dinosaurs. I'm sure if that's the politically correct term, but we're just going to roll with it for this show. Some of these could in fact still be alive, and there's no reason that a small ocean-born reptile of sorts couldn't necessarily have survived and evolved, or at least grown into a much larger version of themselves within the next 65 million years since the extinction level event. So, of course, no large ocean-based species have been discovered. Primarily attach that to, dinosaur-related ones. We found some big-ass sharks in the ocean, mind you, some massive great whites out there, but nothing megalodon size. Those are ones that have died out on their own accord. How much do we really know about our own oceans anyways, though, to counteract that? Like, there's an incredible amount of space and real estate in the ocean that we have not properly explored, and that's not being really kind of let loose for us to be aware of. Information that's kind of kept from us, I would say. And I kind of dive a little bit into that kind of world with the aquatic humanoid cast that I did not too long ago, but a prime example of basically a species that we think to be extinct that is still existed today would be the Colicanth. This is a fish thought to be extinct over 60 million years, still found alive in the ocean. I can't confirm how many, but I know it's not a lot. I believe there were 2 last I checked that were still confirmed to be alive and well. There were remains of giant squids that have been found all over. And if you ask me, I personally don't doubt the possibility of large oceans under our oceans. This kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier, where even under our continents, massive chambers and areas that have been blocked off from the west from the rest of the world. Nature is constantly evolving natural ecosystems have just been cut off to these things that have been trapped in these little bodies and areas underground and then underwater. So it's allowed for ancient and possibly dangerous species to still exist and to evolve into maybe even very scarier versions of themselves, kind of going hand in hand with these creatures that survived in deep water, survived after the apocalyptic event, extinction level event, I should say, and have kind of grown into different versions of themselves. So I do believe that there are some that have been devoid of the natural ecosystem and have turned into some very dangerous things. Again, there's so much room underneath us that we haven't been able to explore all of it. But I think a good example of this would be as scandalous and risque as such a movie as Piranha 3D is, especially its sequel 3DD, my goodness. I think there's a concept in there that is very, very interesting, where there's an earthquake and it breaks open this natural body reservoir underwater. It's almost like a little lake under a lake. And out from that comes these dangerously evolved piranhas that are prehistoric and are just ruthless, very dangerous. And I think that's a great kind of example for what could possibly exist out there. I'm not saying piranhas, but the context of that, I think, is very within the realm of possibility. So I pulled out a little bit of information here just about oceans and stuff, just to kind of talk more and speak more to like a plesiosaur and just these aquatic kind of reptiles. The ocean itself, it has an average depth of about 12,000 feet. Sperm whales, these are huge. They've been found in waters deeper than 3,000 feet. As far as sunlight goes, we have the Aphotic Zone. That's basically where sunlight rarely penetrates beyond this kind of general area. After that, you have the Aphotic Zone. This is about 200 meters in. This is where sunlight begins to decrease rapidly with the depth, and photosynthesis isn't possible here. Then we have the Aphotic Zone. Sunlight does not penetrate here at all. This zone is legitimately just bathed in darkness. And this zone, again, the Aphotic Zone, has 3 subzones. The Bathypelagic Zone. It's between 1,000 to 4,000 meters. The Abyssopelagic Zone, between 4,000 and 6,000 meters. And the Hadopelagic Zone, 6,000 meters and deeper. The deepest part of the ocean is called the Challenger Deep. It is located beneath the western Pacific Ocean and in the southern end of the Mariana Trench. Challenger Deep is approximately 200,000 feet deep. 36,200 feet deep. So I didn't mean for this to turn into, from dinosaur into ocean talk, but plesiosaurs, man, I'm telling you, you have to wonder. That is insanely deep. It's baffling how deep that is. Now you have to take into account something being super, super large. Obviously, that depth would have pressure building up against you, especially if you are an animal or a mammal that is still relying on air to a certain degree. Whales, if they were to, breach, have a huge blush of air built into them and then dive deep down, you're going to deal with pressure. And you've seen documentaries of some submarines that are going so deep, and the pressure is just, if a bolt were to blast off the sub and the water were to shoot into the submarine and you were to put your hand over that stream of water, the pressure would make that water basically like a knife. It would cut your hand in half. So you're dealing with immensely powerful forces down there. Now, that being said, yes, we have giant squids and we have a variety of other entities that exist that we haven't seen that live down there. I'm not saying it means that no super large creature is devoid of being capable to reside down there. I think it's very possible. And again, like I said, if you have these smaller deep sea underwater creatures that reside down there and they had 65 million years to grow and thrive in a naturally evolving ecosystem, then I don't doubt it whatsoever that something could turn into a larger version of itself, could become a very powerful threat, but not necessarily something that would upset the balance of things. I know we have something like the Meg with Jason Statham, and you get to see below the Marianas Trench that layer that they penetrated, and basically sent an AWOL and let all these megalodons just kind of come up from below the surface. And when they came up, it just sent everything sideways in what they were able to do with the natural ecosystem. That kind of falls more in line with what I was talking about along with the piranhas, basically. But to have something that, again, is not cut off and is naturally evolving to be in and a part of the ecosystem where it's balanced and it's not just killing everything that it comes in contact with, then I think you have something that knows how to stay hidden. You have something that knows how to continue to adapt to its surroundings and continues to evolve, even with human intervention and humans popping around. I'm not to say that humans don't have technology down there to explore. I do think that there's some things that have been discovered, but I also think that there's some things that has been discovered but withheld from us as well, especially with dinosaurs. Whether or not these are dinosaurs that are still related or still the same that existed back in the day, who knows? It remains to be seen, but I think there are definitely some interestingly shocking cryptid reptiles that exist in today's present ecosystem. And hopefully we can figure it out and learn the truth of what's really going on. Because I'd much rather there be natural ones than cloned ones, because then that's going to get crazy unless they take the natural ones and clone those ones and make more. Oh, just absolutely nuts. But that's all I got today for this episode of Campfire Clues. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing a whole bunch of research here. Looking into dinosaurs is always a great time, especially with a new dinosaur movie on the horizon here. I'm looking forward to getting back into another episode with Ruben to talk more about dinosaurs. And again, the list I said that I had found, there were so many others that are cited, and Africa and, specifically the Republic of Congo has such a rich kind of documentation of different dinosaurs that have been seen. So it's definitely worth diving back into, and me and Ruben will absolutely be exploring more of it. So, like I said at the beginning, plugs, CryptidClues.ca, CryptidClues@gmail.com, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Patreon. So until next time, we'll see you soon. Stay safe. Have a good one.